Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the We Were Athletes Once podcast. My name is Kyle, and joining me for the first time on the channel is Aaron. Aaron, say what's up.
Hello.
Um, I want to start out by saying sorry about my voice. My voice has been kind of in and out all day today, so I'm gonna be powering through that. But uh, yeah, this is our first episode talking about the UFC. This is definitely Aaron's forte. I, have actually just started learning about UFC a couple years ago with being friends with Aaron.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, this is definitely the topic that Aaron loves talking about, and so I'm excited to be able to have him as my co-host for talking about UFC.
Yeah, I've been watching. I've been paying attention. I haven't been able to watch every single card, but I've been paying attention to pretty much every single card since maybe 2017 or 2018. The fight nights, the pay-per-views, everything. So I feel like I have all this knowledge, but I never have anybody to talk to it about talk about to it. But yeah, I'm excited to just be able to get on a podcast and talk about this sport that I love. So
Yeah, so like I've said in past videos, our goal for these episodes are normally going to be for them to come out on Fridays. We've had a little bit of scheduling issues this week with some of our other episodes, so we had to push everything back a day. So you're getting this episode on Saturday, and tonight is the fight between Dricus Duplessis and Hamzat Chimaev, and
yeah,
we're going to be getting into that a little bit later on. But a big thing that I wanted to talk about to start this episode is actually some news that came out a couple days ago. And, at little peek behind the curtain into our lives, Aaron and I, we both enjoy watching and we try to as much as we can. And a lot of times we host these big UFC nights and stuff like that, but it gets tough sometimes with the pay-per-views. And in this past week, it was announced that the UFC and Paramount Plus has came to an agreement on uh, all of the UFC's events being televised on CBS, and instead of pay-per-views, uh, they're going to be shown on Paramount Plus. Um, the deal is over the next 7 years, it's going to be worth $7.7 billion. So
crazy amount of money.
it's about $1.1 billion a year, which is about double what the UFC was getting through their deal with ESPN. Aaron, I want to kind of get your thoughts on just on this deal and what that could mean going forward.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure because the ESPN deal started in 2019, and I'm if correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that was it was like 1 point something billion for the past 7 years. Is that right?
I think it came out to about 550 million a year, so I think it was
Yeah,
probably around 3 to 4, but
yeah,
it's definitely
and
a lot more with this one.
yeah, and that's crazy. And but I am excited to because I guess all the I'm completely new to this idea, but I guess all the pay-per-views are going to be free along. Well, I guess not free, but you have to pay for a Paramount subscription in order to see all the pay-per-views. But even that's like what 20, probably going to be 20-ish bucks a month.
I think it's about
Um,
10.
10, even crazier. I think one of the I bought the Holloway versus Taporia pay-per-view and it charged me like $95, which is weird because the pay-per-views are listed as 79.99, but ESPN charged me 95 bucks for it. But it's funny because the ESPN deal is still going. It's not 2026 yet, but if you try to look up previous pay-per-views, because they usually post them on ESPN Plus. But the other day I was trying to watch, a certain fight. And they've taken all the previous pay-per-views off of ESPN Plus. So I guess ESPN's like, bye. Sorry. So you can't, I don't think you can watch anything yet, but no, it's going to be crazy. Like being able to get all this content for free, which is why they're getting paid $7 billion, which is an insane, incredible amount of money. It's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't even realize they were doing that with the old fights on ESPN Plus because
Yeah.
uh, I don't even have my ESPN Plus anymore. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's I someone did the math and I don't know how accurate this math is, but I think throughout 2025 to watch every single UFC event it costs somewhere around $1,200.
Yeah.
And so you're basically getting every single UFC event in 2026 for about a tenth of the price.
Hmm.
And you're getting all of that for less than the price of just watching two pay-per-views. So
Yeah.
I think from the standpoint of a consumer, from a viewer, I think it's going to be great, especially for
Hmm.
someone that already have a Paramount Plus account, so not having to pay for any UFC pay-per-views on top of that. That's going to be really fun. I think the biggest thing that came to mind on a drawback that it could have just in general is what it means for fighter pay. Because
Hmm.
like, whenever someone is, on the main card of a pay per view event or is a champion and is fighting to uh, reclaim their title, a big thing in their contract is they get pay per view points, which they get, a certain percentage
Yeah.
of pay per views that are
Yeah.
sold. And so I was curious what that was going to mean with getting rid of pay per views. I'm assuming that
Yeah.
means that base pay for fighters are going to go up because Dana
Yeah.
White already came out and said that fighter pay will go up through this deal, which makes sense. Again, getting double what you had been getting over the past few years
Hmm.
with this deal.
Yeah. And I also wonder if a drawback could be like if the UFC becomes less incentivized to stack these cards to sell more pay-per-views, because they've already gotten their I don't know how they're going to get paid like over time or whatever, but they've already have their set amount of money that they're going to get, and that's $7 billion. So I wonder if it is going to mean sometimes like over time they'll gradually put less and less effort into the pay-per-views. Dana White has came out and said that that's not the way he thinks, but there's been several pay-per-views in the last year that are based on the pay-per-view model that haven't been the best. So we'll see. I mean, he says one thing, but we'll see how it goes. But yeah,
Yeah, Dana has also said in the past few years that he wasn't going to get into boxing, and now he's into
yeah,
boxing. So
yeah.
I don't know if Dana is necessarily the most reliable source on this thing, but
Hmm.
yeah, between that and like I said, him getting into boxing, him having his slap fight league on
So
YouTube,
stupid.
I agree. I agree.
So stupid. And they're like these guys, the slap fighters, they're walking around like they're like champions. Like you stand there and slap a guy who's not allowed to move. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, but with everything that Dana has been getting into over the past few years, I had kind of been questioning that already. So we'll definitely see how the quality of the content looks in 2026.
Hmm.
We like we said, we do still have a few more pay-per-views to deal with in 2025, and
Hmm.
you know over the next few pay-per-views, it doesn't seem to be a problem with uh, what we have to come because I know UFC 320 has a really stacked card,
Hmm.
and I think, like I said, is it four more events over the rest of the year or five?
If I think there's two pay-per-views in October. There's the November pay-per-view, which is usually Madison Square Garden in New York City, and then there's always the December pay-per-view in Las Vegas.
Yeah,
So yeah, four more. Um, yeah,
yeah, but as a viewer, I am very excited to be getting,
Yes.
these pay-per-views for cheaper, and uh hopefully there isn't a whole lot of drawbacks for it. I do think at the end of the day, Dana has been able to build this thing up when people thought the UFC was, this super barbaric thing that people couldn't be put on TV, and he's turned it into an empire. So Dana is a really good businessman, and I would hope he would still put out the same quality of content with his fights.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, from there, I guess it's time to talk about the fight. Um,
Hmm.
Again, through a lot of these other episodes that we're going to be talking about the UFC going forward, we're normally going to go through and have a little bit of a deeper dive onto into what the cards look like, the prelims, the main cards leading up to the main event. This one again obviously is a little bit different because my voice is rough, and we're recording this at 3 p.m. on Saturday,
The
almost 4 p.m. on Saturday.
prelims are about to start.
Prelims are about to start as we're talking about this now. So I think we're going to spend most of our energy talking about DDP and Hamzat.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, going into that fight, what's your original thoughts on what we can expect tonight?
Yeah. Um, well, I think the obvious narrative going into the main event with Hamzat and DDP is that Hamzat's gonna, and I'm pretty sure DDP's the underdog, which is crazy. But that just shows how dominant Hamzat has been. But so I think the narrative going into it is that Hamzat's just gonna go in there and take him down in the first round, and submit him or just dominate him. But I think it's much more nuanced than that. And Hamzat, and I think a big reason as to why that's the narrative is Hamzat's last fight, he fought Robert Whitaker, who's one of the greatest middleweights of all time, and Hamzat went in there and going into that fight, a lot of people thought that that was going to be Hamzat's hardest test. You know, I think Robert had only lost to DDP and Adesanya up until then. And Hamzat went in there and inside one, he took Rob down and submitted him and broke his teeth. So I think going into to this fight, there's obviously the narrative that Hamzat's just going to go in there and dominate, but I think it is not that simple because Dricus, he's a tank. You know, a lot of people think, and a lot of not that just a lot of people think he does have a very awkward style, but it's effective. You know, he had his moments on the feet with Israel Adesanya, who's one of the greatest strikers in UFC history. But not only is he awkward but effective on the feet, but he's also pretty good on the ground. Obviously, not at the level of Hamzat, but he's strong. I personally think that he can defend himself on the ground long enough to maybe tire out Hamzat, and then Hamzat's in the second and third round. You know, you look at Hamzat's fight with Usman. You look at Hamzat's fight with Gilbert Burns. Anytime Hamzat has been in the third round, it has gotten, his cardio has dropped off a cliff. It gets much easier for Hamzat's opponents to pressure him and to be competitive with him the later that fight goes. And we've never seen a fourth round out of Hamzat. And tonight he's fighting a guy who is probably the strongest guy he's ever fought. He's defended the belt, I think 2 or 3 times, and DDP is a tank. And I think that we can see DDP. Of course, he's going to get taken down, but I think we can see him tire out Hamzat. You know, let Hamzat throw him around a bit. I think DDP's jiu-jitsu defense is good enough to not get submitted, tire Hamzat out, and then we see into the later rounds, and I think DDP is going to start taking over and eventually maybe get a finish, which would be insane. If DDP can finish Hamzat tonight, he's beaten the greatest striker in history in Izzy Adesanya. He's beaten Sean Strickland, which is a good win. But if he can beat the other side of that coin in Hamzat, who has probably the most insane grappling talent that we've ever seen in the UFC, that would be crazy. That'd be insane. And I think he would be, top five pound for pound. It would be an amazing win.
Yeah, and I saw that same thing that you did about Dricus being the underdog in this fight. That's it's not very often that we see the defending champion come in as the underdog, and I do think a lot of that comes from uh, again the fact that Shemaev is undefeated throughout his career.
Yeah,
The fact
yeah,
that he does have this relentless style that he is going to be extremely aggressive at the very beginning, and it a lot of this fight is going to depend on if when Chimaev tries to get this fight on the ground, if DDP is going to be able to defend that at the very beginning.
yeah.
I think.
And what were you saying?
Oh no, go ahead.
And this is I believe obviously outside of the UFC, I believe he's had 5 round fight camps, but in the UFC, I think this is the first. No, this might be the first or second time that Hamzat's ever had to prepare for a 5 round main event or a 5 round championship fight, and he's never gone past the third round. So if Dricus has a real chance of surviving, and I don't think anybody can defend that first round takedown from Hamza. It's just too powerful and it's too good. But I do think there are people like DDP who are just tanks, and they can get taken down, but you're not going to submit me. And so I think that's what can happen tonight.
Yeah, in his UFC career, he has only went even to the third round twice, and he's been in the second round another time. All of his other fights have been first round finishes.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know if you can necessarily do that with DDP. Like you said, he's defended this belt a lot. He knows what it's like to go in the deep rounds of, go into championship rounds. And, DDP is a big boy for a middleweight. He's
Yep.
probably going to be fighting at, anywhere from 200 to 210 pounds. And, I something that really sticks out to me whenever it comes to DDP is, he is very unorthodox. He's very goofy, or at least looks like it. It doesn't look like a lot of times whenever he's punching, he has a whole lot of power, but he does. And
Oh
as
yeah.
unorthodox as he is, it's been extremely effective throughout his career. And DDP really does a good job at using your strength against you whenever you fight him.
Hmm.
I don't think he'll be afraid to grapple with Hamzat in this fight.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
if someone wants to come at him very aggressively with, you know, being on his feet and wanting to strike, he'll do that. He's a very
Hmm.
well-rounded fighter.
Yeah.
You have to be a champion with, a couple defenses under your belt. But, the fact that DDP is such a big underdog in this fight is wild to me because, you know,
Hmm.
I do think Shemaev is going to come, like I said, extremely aggressive in the first round, and I think the fight is going to rely on how DDP responds to that because I can see a world where Shemaev finishes him in the first round
Hmm.
just like he does with most of his other opponents.
Yeah, of
But
course.
the later this
Yeah.
fight goes, having those championship rounds under your belt is extremely, extremely powerful in this
Yeah.
league.
And even in the third round, if this fight goes past the first round, like put bet the house on DDP,
Yeah.
because DDP is not gonna slow down, and Hamzat is 100% going to slow down. like even by the third round. You look at his fight with Usman, which was a crazy turn of events. It was, I believe, October of 2023 in Abu Dhabi. Hamzat Chimaev was supposed to fight Paulo Costa, and fight week, Paulo Costa backs out of the fight with an injury. They call Kamaru Usman up from welterweight to fight Hamzat at 185 on, I think it at most it was a week's notice. This is an Usman who has never fought at middleweight in the UFC. He's coming a week's notice, and Usman took him. He of course he got taken down like I think everybody will by Hamzat in the first round, but he survived. And by the third round, or by the second round, by the third round, he was making it very, very competitive. And if you look at the end of that, I I think rewatching that fight, Usman won the third round, and Hamzat obviously won the second round, and it's that second round that's going to be one of those swing rounds that it just depends on who's watching it. But even if you look at that, DDP is much, much bigger than Usman, and he's got that cardio of Usman. And if DDP can be like Usman and sort of just survive that first and maybe second round, I'm telling you, DDP is going to win this fight.
Yeah, I think it's very, like, people need to understand just how quickly you gas out, just in general, whenever your game relies on grappling and wrestling in your ground game. You
Hmm.
don't really get those breaks of whenever you're on your feet. It's like, okay, I can back away a little bit. I can, just try and
Yeah.
keep him out of reach for a little bit, let me gain my breath. When you're on the ground, you have to go, or
Hmm.
you're gonna get your back taken real quick.
Yeah. And if Hamzat slows down even a little bit, Dricus is going to be pushing in his face the whole time. So, and if Hamzat wins a decision, I will never do this podcast again. I would
That's
look like a fool.
bold words.
Yeah.
Uh, so do you have Dricus winning this fight, or do you think Kamzat pulls it out?
It's hard because Hamzat, I know I've spouted for the past 10 minutes about how Dricus is going to win and Dricus is going to go in there and um, just out dog him. But at the same time, I I've been watching MMA. I've been watching UFC for a pretty long time, and I believe that Hamzat is the hardest first round fighter to face out of anybody ever I've ever seen. So I mean, I think it's 50-50. I think it's just as likely that Dricus can take him into deep waters as it is likely that Hamzat can go in there and get that first round win. And that's why this fight is so exciting, because these are two guys who at the top of their game, and we have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be a fun fight to watch. If I had to end up picking who I think is gonna win, I do think DDP takes it, because
Yeah, I agree.
at the end of the day, yes, that first round and that initial push from Hamza it's gonna be tough, and he's gonna need to be able to drag him into deep waters after that. But
Hmm.
I think Drickus knows that, and I think Drickus is extremely smart, and I think he's you know done the research on his opponent. I think he knows what's going to be
Yeah,
coming, and I think he's going to be able to defend it.
yeah,
And, like you said, the fact that Drickus is so versatile in his game, I do think that's super important for this fight, because I do think if it's on the feet, like if this is a fight that stays on the feet, I think I probably lean towards Drickus with an advantage there. Again, just
yeah,
how goofy he looks.
yeah.
I cannot understate that enough.
There's a story actually of Dricus going in. He faced an entire, I believe it was a Gracie Jiu Jitsu team,
Yeah.
and he submitted every last one of them.
Yeah, I don't know if I
Yeah,
was watching something from Michael Bisping or from Chael Sonnen, but one of them talked about that.
yeah,
That was unreal. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I do think this fight at the end of the day, what it's going to come down to is those later rounds because I don't think
Hmm.
you're going to be able to finish DDP that quickly. And I there was at the beginning of his career, there were a lot of questions about DDP's gas tank, but and I think a lot of that just came from the fact that he couldn't breathe out of his nose.
Yeah, and he
I
just
found
looked exhausted.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
found that extremely funny that,
yeah,
he got his nose job and that
yeah,
ended up revitalizing his career.
yeah.
But I do think that's going to be a huge advantage. Um,
Hmm.
I think that will be enough for DDP.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
dude. I remember in 2020 on Fight Island when COVID was happening, and I remember watching Hamzat make his UFC debut, and then a week later he fought. I think he made his debut at 185, and then a week later he fought at 170. And that was five years ago in 2020, and people are like, "This dude's gonna be champ by the end of the year," and then it's just crazy. Like
that's always
this
how it
dude,
goes.
yeah, this dude came into the UFC with, and probably in the most dominant fashion that you can, and people are talking about this guy's about to be champ, and he's 5 years ago or 5 years later, he's finally getting his first title shot. That just, I think that speaks to how, sometimes this guy's training camps fall apart. He's gotten COVID multiple times. He just keeps getting sick. But I think you see that a lot in these super, super dominant, like crazy dominant guys is outside of the octagon, they have trouble, getting to these fights, whether it be from overtraining or what, I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of reports going out there about, the fact that Hamzat winning might be the worst thing that happens to the UFC because there's been talks about him either retiring or not wanting to be a super active champion.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any truth
Um,
to those rumors?
well, he fought in October. And then I can't remember the last time he fought before last October. Was it, what
Um,
did he fight Kevin Holland before that in 2022?
yeah, it was Kevin Holland September 2022, Kamaru Usman October
Oh yeah.
2023,
Yeah, it
and
was
Brian
Usman.
Whitaker October 2024.
Yeah, like I think, and a lot of these guys from a lot of these Russian guys that are champions, Islam, um, you know, who else? Khabib when he was around, you got the light heavyweight champ, Magomed Ankalaev. A lot of these guys just fight once a year, and that is due to Ramadan. They adhere to that schedule for their religion, and so a lot of these guys can only fight a certain time throughout the year. And Hamzat's like maybe those statements are true. Maybe he will only fight once a year, which would suck because I think right now the middleweight division is the most fire, the most stacked that it's been in a really long time. So I'd like to see an active champion, which Dricus is. I think he fought in he's fighting here in August. He's fought in February, and then he last fought in when
Yeah,
was
August
that?
of 24.
Yeah,
So I mean, twice a year.
yeah.
That's generally what you'd ask for of a fighter.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, I don't think there's any credence to the rumor of he's gonna get the belt and then immediately retire. He is
No,
only
yeah,
31 years old.
yeah.
Uh, but
I think he even rebuked those and was like, "No, I need money. I'm not about to retire."
yeah, but I do think there is a lot of credence to the fact that like you said, because they're just physically not able to fight like
Hmm.
that. I do think it is pretty likely that he doesn't fight more than once a year.
Yeah,
And, you
I
know,
agree.
I it sucks because we just talked about, the fact that this deal, for all we know, might affect the quality of these fight cards that are going to be coming up.
Yeah,
Champions not being active really hurts that. This
yeah.
is the first, like, if go like looking forward a couple cards, this is the first heavyweight fight in UFC 321. This is gonna be the first heavyweight championship fight that we've had in over a year, and
Thanks,
it's
John Jones.
yeah, and people want to see active champions, and fighting at least twice a year. And
Hmm.
so I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if Hamzat wins and he does only fight once a year, but I think people would probably prefer seeing Drickus come in and fight 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, before we head out of here, because like I said, this is going to be a pretty quick episode. Are
Hmm.
there any other fights that I'm just going to let you tell me if there's any other fights that you like that we should be watching for tonight?
Um, it's a pretty stacked card. We lost a few fights in Ruzaboev versus what's his name? He missed weight.
Brian Battle.
Yeah, Battle. I don't know why I forgot his name. But yeah, we lost Battle versus Ruzaboev, which is a fight that I really wanted to see. The last time, uh, so Ruzaboev was at 170 until he faced, our boy Joaquin Buckley from St. Louis. We watched Joaquin Buckley whoop up on Sultan Ruzaboev in St. Louis, put a wrestling clinic on him. So that was fun.
Didn't I
But yeah,
hear right after that he called out Conor McGregor?
yeah, I think so. Yeah, but that fight's not happening. I was really looking forward to it, but there's some fights on the main card. The co-main event. Aaron Pico versus why am I not remembering these guys' names
Christian
right?
Murphy, Lerone Murphy.
Yeah, Murphy. Yeah, Murphy's on. I think he's on an 8-fight win streak. He's been tearing through the division, but not a lot of people know about him because a lot of times he goes to a decision. But he's a very very good fighter. I think he's ranked number 6. But he's going to be fighting Aaron Pico, I've known for a while. He's been in Bellator. He was fighting in Bellator when he was very young, like 19 or 20, knocking dudes out. But then he got knocked out a few times brutally. But he's been able to string some good wins together, and now he got picked up by the UFC. So I'm really excited to see how another Bellator prospect comes in because the past few haven't been the best. So that's a good fight, Aaron Pico versus Lerone Murphy. And then another one that I'm really, really excited for is Carlos Prates versus Jeff Neal. That fight's happening at 170, and Jeff Neal has been around for a very long time. I remember in 2019, Jeff Neal knocked out he knocked out Mike Perry, and everybody was saying that this guy's the dark horse of the division after knocking out Mike Perry. But Jeff Neal fought he fought guys like Stephen Thompson. He's fought Shavkat Rachmanov. He fought Ian Gary. He's fought a lot of really good guys, and Jeff Neal is really really good with the hands, and I haven't seen much grappling from him, but that's why this fight excites me so much because Carlos Prates is a part of the Fighting Nerds. And if you don't know what the Fighting Nerds is, it's an MMA team that has came out of nowhere in the past 2 or 3 years. It's out of Brazil, and it's Carlos Prates. It is Gene Silva at 145, Carlos Prates at 170, Mauricio Hufi, or Rufi, however you want to pronounce it, he's at 155, and dude, I forgot another name. He's at 185. Oh, Kyle Barallo. He's at 185, and he's actually Kyle Barallo. He's about to fight a number one contender fight against what's his name? Kyle Barallo. Forgot his name, but that's at 185. Imavov. Braulio's fighting Imavov. Yeah, at 185. That's a number one. Imavov just knocked out Izzy Adesanya. So that's the number one contender fight that's about to happen. And then Protes at 170, Mauricio Hufi at 155. Go, if you're listening to this, look up Mauricio Hufi, Ruffy, versus Bobby Green. It's one of the craziest wheel kick, I think it's a wheel kick, knockouts you will ever see. And then Gene Silva at 145 is about to fight for a number one contender fight. So these four guys out of the Fighting Nerds have came out in the past 2 or so years, and they've just been dominating their divisions. But back to it, Carlos Prates, like I said, he's been dominating his division. His last fight, he fought Ian Gary, and he lost a decision. But in the fifth round, Carlos Prates had Ian Gary in bad trouble, which is crazy because I rate Ian Gary very highly. But Carlos Prates, he's a very good Muay Thai striker, and this fight is going to be a banger. Between Jeff Neal, who swings to knock you out, and also Carlos Prates, who swings to knock you out. It's two of the most dangerous strikers in the division fighting, and so that's going to be almost a guaranteed knockout. But I think Neal versus Prates is my number one anticipated fight on the card. Who else is on the main card?
We've got Cannonier and Michael Venom Page.
That's a good fight.
And then we got Tim Elliott and Kai Sakurra.
Yeah, Kai Sakurra. Tonight will be his second fight in the UFC, and his last fight he fought the champion at flyweight. And he was coming in on his debut getting a title shot, which is very unheard of. Kai Sakurra was in, I believe he was in one championship. He was in some sort of Asian promotion. I don't know if it was one championship. Ryzen. He was in Ryzen.
Oh, you there? Okay.
Yeah. Are you checking where he was at before?
I was checking with that, and I just
Yeah. Yeah, he was in.
I got nervous.
Kai Sakurra was coming from Ryzen. He came into the UFC, was getting his title shot in his debut, which is crazy. And of course, dude got dominated. But Kai Sakurra is very fast. He's very explosive. And Tim Elliott, he's an unk of the flyweight division. And so I can definitely see Asakura getting the win there. MVP versus Cannonier. Cannonier's a dog at middleweight. He's been around for a while. He used to fight at heavyweight. He's actually, I think, one of two or three fighters in the UFC who have knockout wins in 3 different divisions: heavyweight, light heavyweight, and now middleweight. He's also a bit of an unk, but he's beaten some really good guys. In his last fight, he beat Gregory Rodriguez, who's a bit of a dark horse of the division. So, and then MVP Michael Venom Page is coming in from Bellator. Very famous fighter for his flashy striking. He's got some of the most insane knockouts in history that you'll ever see, and some of the most brutal finishes that you'll ever see. And he's coming over from Bellator. He won his debut, and then he lost to Ian Gary, and then he beat who did he beat? He beat the Russian with one eye. That's what we'll call him. The Russian with
Shara Bullet.
Yeah, Shara Bullet. Magomed Shara Magomedov or something like that. He beat him in his last fight, which was a really good win. Shara Bullet is one of the best prospects at middleweight. And MVP came in to the UFC at welterweight, and he's probably staying up at middleweight because of that win over Shara. But I'm really excited. I think if I were to pick, here are my picks. It's Asakura over Elliott. it's MVP over Cannoneer, and then Neil versus Protest is a hard fight because I think either of those guys can win. But I'm gonna go with the fresher guy, the prospect in Protest, because he's a very good striker, and I see this fight playing out on the feet. Him with his kicks and with his elbows and his rangy punches. I just think Protest has the more weapons. And then in the co-main event, I got Murphy, unless we see something completely different than unless we see something completely different from Aaron Pico. Murphy's the best guy that Aaron Pico has ever faced, and these other Bellator guys coming in have not done well. So we'll see how that plays out. And then in the main event, I got DDP, Drickus.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, guys, this is why we have him on the show because I knew my voice needed a break. I can
I feel like I'm losing my voice. I'm like coughing.
correct me if I'm wrong. Is this Aaron Pico's UFC debut?
Yep. It's his debut.
When it comes to guys like Kai Asakura and Aaron Pico who, are getting these high profile fights in their first fight,
Mhm.
it's always wild to me. And I
Yeah.
know they both have a lot of experience in other leagues, but I even had heard about the story of when DDP and Bo Nickel fought on the same card, and Bo Nickel
Yeah.
was on the main card on his
Yeah.
first fight, and DDP had a
Yeah.
couple fights, and he was in the prelims, and
Yeah.
he was pretty pissed off about that.
Dude, at UFC 300, they put Bo Nickel on the main card, and they put guys like Yuri Prohaska, Cody Garbrandt, Davison Figueiredo, who are all former champions, defending champions, and they put Bo Nickel on the main card. And Bo Nickel lost to RDR, Reiner de Ritter, in his last fight, who Reiner de Ritter in the middleweight division is also proving to be, you know, maybe the number one contender, maybe next champion, if I say, he just beat Robert Whitaker. So, I mean, as time goes on, that Bo Nickel's loss to RDR doesn't look as bad, but at the same time, Bo Nickel should have never been on the main card over guys like Yuri and Cody Garbrandt, Davison Figueiredo, those guys, and that was at UFC 300. So I don't know.
Yeah. And whenever they fast track these guys to these title fights or these high profile fights, like you said, Pico is facing Murphy, who's number 6 in the division.
Hmm.
It's always interesting to see how they do from there.
Yeah. In Murphy's very, very good too. But at the same time, there's always this is fighting, and there's always that puncher's chance. There's always that unicorn that comes in and he says, "Forget everything that you've seen. I'm going to show you something different." And Aaron Pico could get a knockout. He could win tonight. So that's why MMA is so good. Because you never know what could happen. It can change in a split second. It's not like basketball and football and these other sports. MMA
to
is
use air quotes right there.
MMA is that's why MMA is the greatest sport. Boxing, combat sports, it's the greatest. It's the greatest.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's definitely why I wanted to be sure to include, UFC, other types of MMA, other leagues of MMA. We're gonna be talking about boxing, I'm sure,
Hmm.
throughout this. And that's why I wanted to add it because I know there's a lot of people like you, like me, who are passionate about these sports and who, really want to be able to have more outlets and more opinions to hear and to talk about. So that is probably
Hmm.
where we are going to leave off for this episode. If you guys are watching, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it. If you guys are listening on Spotify, we really appreciate it. Be sure to go follow us there. Give us a 5-star review. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Tell us, how wrong we are and how Chimaev is gonna finish DDP in 30 seconds today.
If Chimaev wins a decision, I will look like a fool. If he wins a decision, I will be very salty.
But that's the best part about these podcasts. People don't like being right. They like to see opinions that are very, very demonstrative, and they like to see those opinions be wrong. So, especially if this fight tonight ends in a decision that Chimaev wins, be sure to come back next week and
Clown me.
yeah,
Clown me in the comments.
yeah, we'll watch Aaron eat his words.
I might record my reaction
Yeah,
to the fight just to
please do.
see.
Please do. It'll be extremely fun to watch, and again,
We'll,
especially if you're wrong.
we'll be like a before and after prediction versus reality.
Yeah. And if you guys like our content, like I said, just be sure to continue to follow us, continue to support us. Next week, whenever we talk about MMA, we will probably be talking about the recap of this card and looking at uh, a very early lead up into UFC 320. Uh,
Hmm.
and we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna be talking about other stuff between those because UFC 320 isn't for another month and a half. We have a lot of good content coming up. We have a lot of things that we're talking about in order to make this channel better.
Hmm.
And the fact that you guys are here supporting us very early on means the world to us. So
I
thank you
love you,
guys.
Mark.
What's that?
I said I love you, Mark.
um, yeah. So be sure to watch. Be sure to keep following for that. We will be back on Monday to talk about more of the NFL, and we will see you guys next time.